Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Jenny McFarland. I'm the bird conservation biologist and the co-runner of the Arizona Important Bird Areas program for Arizona. And this is a meeting about the 2023 elf owl surveys in the Tucson area, where we will be surveying on one night, sort of east of Tucson, the Sonoran Desert Habitat east of Tucson within Saguaro National Park East, also called the Rincon Mountain District. And then the next night, surveying west of Tucson in the Sonoran Desert Habitat, and that will be Saguaro National Park West, also known as the Tucson Mountain District, and Tucson Mountain Park, run by Pima County. These surveys are part of the Arizona Important Bird Areas program mission, and that program is headed up by, or not headed up, it's sponsored by Arizona Game and Fish and run by Tucson Audubon Society and Audubon Southwest. So two Audubons together run the Arizona IBA, which is generously supported by Arizona Game and Fish. And these particular surveys, the elf owl surveys, are done in partnership with Saguaro National Park. They're big partners in this. They really love these surveys and are always anxious to see the data, and they really like it. They really like that these surveys happen and that we all do this in Saguaro National Park. And Tucson Mountain Park has joined as a partner on the survey in the last few years, and very generously gives us a right of entry and informs their law enforcement and all that we're out there. So this is all done. It's a really lovely sort of teamwork kind of survey. It's really quite a fun survey. We do it every spring. Gosh, starting, I think we've probably done these 5 or 6 years in a row now, and they're really fun surveys. And the timing of them hinges on the full moon. So I try to schedule the surveys the few evenings leading into the full moon, so that the moon is actually up. Because if you wait too long, if you do it a day or two after the full moon, it rises quite late at night. But if you do it the few days leading into the full moon, the moon is up before sunset and then illuminating the sky as we do our survey, which opinions vary, but I think makes the elf owls call a bit more, and certainly makes walking a little bit safer as we're moving around, or your chances of seeing the elf owls or other owls fly in a little bit safer. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll talk about elf owls. Share sound. Yes. Screen 2. Yes. Here we go. Okay. So is this showing up okay? Can everyone see this? Okay. All right. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about elf owls. Many people on this survey have helped in the past and are probably pretty familiar with elf owls, but so if you just sort of Google elf owls, let me back up on this page here. If you just Google them, you see that there's actually a lot of resources. So I just Google elf owl, and all these cool photos show up, and you can see how small they are in this person's hand. They're very small, so small, in fact, that they are the smallest owl in the world. There's this cool video that I've shown before that's really fun from PBS. So if you're interested, check it out. It shows sort of a male bringing food to a female. It's really sweet. So, but what I especially like as an overview is this All About Birds page from Cornell, where it has some nice photos of elf owl. And some of the things to note about a visual idea of elf owl is that they are pretty much brown and white, as opposed to the other small owl we're likely to encounter, western screech owl, which is gray and white. They do not have ear tufts. They have little round heads. Screech owls have little horns, little ear tufts that they can raise and lower those. So sometimes screech owls appear round-headed if they've lowered their ear tufts, but elf owls don't have them at all. They do have these pretty distinctive white marks on the face, almost look like white eyebrow marks coming over their eyes. And they have quite a lot of white mottling in the wings and on the chest. So very much brown owls, very small. But one of the best ways is voice. Not only because it's dark, but because they have quite a distinctive voice. And this time of year, they call quite a lot. So this is a range map showing that they come up here for the spring. So they migrate into southern Arizona. They're not year-round birds here. They come up, they winter in sort of West Mexico in this blue zone. They migrate through this yellow migration zone, and they will come up into southern Arizona and southeast New Mexico to breed. And there's also populations in Texas and a year-round population in Baja. Now, these birds are cavity nesters. They're nesting in where the areas will be in Sonoran Desert. They're nesting in saguaro cavities. You can encounter elf owls outside of Sonoran Desert. You may hear them sometimes up on Mount Lemmon or places like that, sort of in that Madrean oak pine zone, you may hear them as well, because they are pretty varied in their habitat. They are very much throughout Sonoran Desert saguaro habitat, but they do also go higher up in elevation too. So if you think you hear an elf owl on Mount Lemmon while you're looking for whiskered screech owls, you very well could. They do go up into that habitat. I've had them frequently in Ramsey Canyon of the Huachucas, or that sort of Sycamore Creekside habitat as well. So they're pretty adaptable owl, but they are an iconic owl of Sonoran Desert habitat. And the reason we're focusing on Sonoran Desert is two of our important bird areas, the Tucson Mountains important bird area, and the Tucson, which is west of Tucson, and the Tucson Sky Islands important bird area east of Tucson. It has a focus of elf owl. So we're focusing on this bird for this habitat. It is a continental qualifying species. Okay. So they're really cool birds, and they are the tiniest in the world, and they use cavities to nest in, like many small owls. And let's just go ahead and listen to the iconic male elf owl call. Okay, so that's a male call, and that's the classic call. They do a lot of other sounds, which I'll play in a little bit. I have some variations on this because they do most of the sounds they make sort of sound like that. Okay, have that kind of tone, that kind of quality, and they do this little laughing call, which is actually what they're named for, is their little laughing call. And let's actually look at Western Screech Owl real quick, just because we are gonna encounter them as well. So Western Screech Owl is the other small owl that can be out here. Now we are going to record any birds that we can identify and detect, at night when you're on your survey points. But this is Western Screech. They are a bit bigger than elf owls, but they're still pretty small. So I always think of elf owl as being sort of like, when they're at their poofiest, they're sort of like sparrow sized, whereas a Western Screech Owl at their poofiest is going to be almost like a grapefruit type size. Okay, they're a bit bigger, but they are still quite small, and will also nest in saguaro cavities. So it's little gray and white striped bird with little highlights of black. They do have little tufts that they can raise, or sometimes they keep them down, give a little round-headed appearance. This is what they sound like. The classic bouncing ball call. Let's do a tremolo too, which we'll hear in our survey file. We have a specific custom audio file we use for the survey. Okay, because these are callback surveys, because otherwise these birds, they may call quite a lot just on their own, but you're not going to be sure at a survey point if they're around unless you play. So this is sort of the range of Western Screech Owl, and they're quite widespread throughout the West. So they will nest in trees, nest boxes, but they do also like saguaros in the same habitat as the elf owls in Sonoran Desert. So this is the other owl that we will be playing for in our recording, and I'll explain why. So you may well detect them when you're out on the survey, and we also do go ahead and document them on our data form. Okay, so that's sort of a nice little introduction to these owls. And we are doing coordinated, organized surveys. So we have a specific protocol and a data form for these surveys. And you can go on to, and I already sent this link out, but I'll include it again in the follow-up message after this meeting. But we have this specific protocol. I have a little bit of background here on this page. This is a link to the Arizona Important Bird Areas program, where we do a lot of organizing for surveys. So I have a background on what's going on, where the surveys are happening, the two different surveys. And then I have a link here to download a protocol. And this is going to literally open a PDF document for you that you can save, review ahead of time, print if you'd like. And this has some background information again about elf owls and what they look like. So it has some ID photos again. There's an elf owl on the left, little brown owl, round head, and then the comparatively of Western Screech Owl. So, and it also has a nice link to what we just looked at, Birds of Cornell, the elf owl profile. And it also then goes over the protocol. The main thing that's happening So basically what we're doing is everyone is assigned a section of trail or a section of road, and we're going to wait until nightfall. So what I'm suggesting is that I have here the chart of when darkness comes here for Tucson. And for these next 2 days of May 2nd and 3rd, sunset is at 7:05 p.m., but it doesn't actually get dark enough for elf owls to start calling pretty much until the end of nautical twilight. And that's when it actually gets dark, or civil twilight, excuse me. Civil twilight is about 7:30. So the owls you shouldn't really start your first point. You can get to your first point, but you shouldn't really start your first point until 7:30 or a few minutes to 7:30 maybe. It has to be really quite dark. These are very small owls. They are very vulnerable to predation, and they know it. So they are pretty darn quiet until it's actually, and they're certainly not moving around until it's pretty much dark. So I would suggest people get to their assigned trailhead around 7:15 or whatever you're comfortable with, so that you have enough time to sort of get ready, make sure your clipboard's ready, make sure your headlamp is working and all that, make sure you have your light and everything. So I would suggest people get there around 7:15 and then start around 7:30. So that's going to be nautical twilight. So, excuse me, civil twilight. And then once you're at your first point, these are approximately 5 to 6 minutes per point. And I have a custom audio file that you can download, which I have linked to here, and I have right here. So yeah, the actual audio file. But if something happens and it's not working, what the basic idea and what the audio file does is it starts with a minute of silence. So if you download this audio file and like, it's not playing, there's no sound, that's because the first minute is silence, and that's like a listening period. Okay, and it's literally just silence. And then it's going to play an elf owl call for about 15 seconds. If something happens and you don't have the audio file, you can just time a minute of silence, then play elf owl from your phone, from a Sibley app or something, or the Merlin app or something. You can play just an elf owl call. That'll work too. But it's nice to just have the audio file, just time it for you. Plays elf owl for about 15 seconds. It listens for about a minute. Then it plays elf owl again, listens for, silence for about a minute. And you can listen intently. Then it's going to play Western Screech Owl. So it's playing 4 audio files. It's a minute of silence, elf owl, silence, elf owl, silence, then Western Screech Owl, silence, then Western Screech Owl again, silence. So it's about, what is that? Yeah, it's about 5 minutes long, maybe a few seconds longer. And if you go through that whole audio file and you're like, gosh, I think I heard one, I'm not sure, you can go ahead and play it again. Play, if you're like, maybe I heard an elf owl, you can go ahead and play elf owl again if you'd like. Might be quicker rather than go through the whole file to just play it from an app or something, but that's certainly fine. But we need to at least this. I need at least these. Elf owl played twice, Western Screech Owl played twice. Now the reason we do Western Screech Owl is, one, it's kind of fun to hear them call back, but there's also a very practical reason for this. I don't know why elf owls do this. They can be kind of aggressive, as many tiny birds are, like hummingbirds. I always think of them kind of as the hummingbirds of owls. They can be very aggressive. And I have had situations where you play elf owl, nothing. You don't hear anything. You play elf owl, you don't hear anything. And you play Western Screech Owl and elf owls start answering. That does happen sometimes. And I'm not really sure. It must just be an aggression thing. They're happy with their elf owl neighbors, but they're like, what? I didn't know there was Western Screech Owl around here. I'm not sure. But it does sometimes go that way, which is why we've added in Western Screech Owl. So you go through that whole audio file, that whole 5 minutes. You've been listening and detecting. We do need people to sort of, as much as you can, approximate how far away the owls are and in what direction. I know this is weird and it's hard to be like, is it 20 or 25 meters? It just has to be sort of close. Okay, so whatever you think. If you're like, well, that one's definitely further than that one, so I'm going to say 10 and 20, that's fine. But I just need an approximate as best as you can guess on how far away they are. Because when we put these on the map, the data on the map, I'm going to project those points into the correct, into the direction you documented and the distance. So if you're like, gosh, that one sounds really far, that's got to be at least 100 meters. And then if we were to go out there and measure and it was actually, 60 meters, that's fine. We're getting very close. Okay. So this is all relative. So don't sweat trying to get the exact distance or worry that you're doing it wrong. Getting close at all is great. And for the direction, if you're using a compass app or something, you can do the number, like the degrees of direction is great to document, Or if you're like, it's north, northeast, that's great too. However you want to document that is fine. We can convert that in our final spreadsheet to then put on the map. All right, so once you've done your 5-minute point, you've recorded what you heard, and we're recording everything. So elf owl screeches, if you're hearing great horned owls, go ahead and record that. If you're hearing lesser nighthawks or common porwills or anything, go ahead and record that. And also with an estimated distance and direction if you can. And another important note that the protocol does cover, this protocol document, is that if you hear great horned owls and they sound very close, if they sound close to your position, let's say within 100 meters or so. I'm not talking about like distant calling great horned owls because their voices can carry quite far. But if you're hearing one real close or you're seeing one on a saguaro, which has happened to several teams last year, do not play the small owls. Wait a few minutes, see if you hear anything calling on your own, and then move on. Because when little owls hear us playing calls, they get excited. They may start moving around and coming closer to our positions. And we don't want to lure them towards great horned owls that could take them as prey. So we're really trying to not do that. So if you hear or detect a great horned owl within 100 meters of your position, let's just skip that one. You listen for a few minutes and see if you get any elf owls. Just make a note in the data sheet, great horned owl detected, and keep going. So the spacing of the point counts is in the protocol as well, but it's pretty simple. We've tried to keep this real simple. Is you're just going to keep going down your trail, and we're doing them about 150 meters apart, which is 0.1 of a mile approximately. It's pretty close to 0.1 of a mile. And how to measure that out, people have come up with very clever ways of doing this over the years. I just use a GPS unit and have it do the go-to function. So it tells me from my last point how far I've gone. That's certainly one way to do it. Some people use some sort of hiking app or something, which then tells them when they've gone 0.1 of a mile. That works great. Or if you're going to use a pedometer, this is actually one a lot of people do because smartphones come with pedometers. It's great. If you're going to use a pedometer, it's about 200 steps. Okay, so about 200 steps. It doesn't have to be exactly 150 meters. We're looking for sort of a minimum of 150 meters between each point, just to make sure you're far enough away that you're not getting the same elf owls, because they will sometimes sort of follow you if you're doing them too close. And then you're going to kind of double counting the owls. So we're looking for about 200 steps or 0.1 of a mile or 150 meters between the points. And then you're going to go ahead and record your new time for your new point. You're going to start that audio file again with that minute of silence into playing elf owl. So the goal is to do about 10 of these. If you want to do more than that, that's great. If you want to do fewer, that's also totally fine. But, a good number is about 10 point counts. That takes a while. That takes, nearly an hour just of listening, of doing the points. And then there's the walking between. So that usually makes it about, a 2-hour survey or less. So that gets you out of there before 10 p.m. So the goal is about 10. If it's fewer than that, that's no problem. If you're having difficulties or the hikes, whatever, if something happens and you want to do fewer than that, that's fine. If you're really gung-ho and want to do more, that's also fine. I have told the park though that we should be out of there around 11 p.m. So let's try to be out of there by 11. It's not a problem if we're in there a little bit later, because on the east side, the gate has an auto sensor to open. And on the west side, they're not locking gates at all. So that should be, it's not an issue, but let's just try to be out there by 11 so their law enforcement doesn't have to, worry about us. Another thing I'm doing, and I have this in the protocol, is when you're done with your survey and you're back at your vehicle, go ahead and text me. Just shoot me a text that you guys, the name of your names and that you're out. Just, I'll start crossing those off a list, and I don't leave until I'm sure everyone's out. Okay, so just a note for you there. It is pretty important. I also have been given, and I'm gonna include this in the info email I'm going to send right after this meeting. I do have, what is it? It's the 24-hour National Park Service emergency dispatch number. So if something happens, if you see someone up to some shady stuff, someone stealing a saguaro or something like that, or something's happened and it's not like a super emergencies, we're calling 911. Okay. But if it's not a 911 emergency, they did give me the dispatch number for the Park Service, and they will then connect you to the ranger in the area. So if anything's going on, I do have that number and I will send it to everybody. And that's actually, and I have a note on this, that's actually a good number just to keep in your phone. Because if something's happening in the future and you're having a day hike and you see something going on, that's a really good number to have with you. Okay, so that's the protocol. And then on this link to the information page on our website, the next thing I have here is the data form. So the data form is a very simple form. If you have a printer, go ahead and print it if it ever opens. Our Wi-Fi is not great here and upstairs to Sonoma. You can go ahead and print this form. It is a pretty simple form though. So if you don't want to print it, you can also just sort of write these columns in a notebook or something and take that with you. So the main thing I need documented is the date, the time, location, route, and surveyors. So what was your location? That means Saguaro Park East or West or Tucson Mountain Park, that kind of high level location. What was the name of your route? Let's say you're doing the Esperanza Trail, you put that. And then who was there? And then for each of the stop numbers, you're going to record coordinates. Now, this is very important, and the protocol talks about this. I need everyone to be recording coordinates. It can be in UTMs, which are those ones that start out like 528, you know, so it can be the metric UTMs, or it can be decimal degrees, which is actually the one that's a lot more common now. Things have shifted over time. And now decimal degrees, like 32.68, comma, negative 110.98, those sorts of decimal degrees measurements, which is now standard for Google Maps and a lot of these other GPS apps, is great. So whether you're doing metric or you're doing which UTMs or you're doing decimal degrees, that's awesome. If your app is being weird and only showing you like lat long, you know, hours, minutes, seconds, that's also fine. And we can convert pretty much anything as long as we know what it is. And I can usually tell by looking at them. But there's a lot of free apps that will tell you your coordinates now that you can get on your smartphone. I have a recommended one that I have in the protocol. It's the one I use a lot. It's free. It doesn't save your points. So I just screenshot them, but it's called GPS Status. That's quite a good one. I like it. And I use it a lot because it shows, it shows a compass, and it just shows your degrees as you move. So it has your, it got a compass thing that, you know, when you point the phone forward, it shows you what the degrees are of the direction. And then it just shows your, I have it set to decimal degrees. So it's just showing me decimal degrees right there. So there's a lot of free apps. I like that one, but there's a lot of them. Gaia will do it. There's a lot of free ones that will tell you the coordinates of where in the world you're standing at that moment. And that's what we really need to know. We need your start time, and then whatever species you are detecting. So, and I have here at the bottom of the form here, the codes for that. Elf owl is ELOW, Western screech owl is WESO. Now you can also just write elf owl, but there, you know, you could just do the code if you'd like. And then the distance, approximate distance, okay, and meters is great, but if you do feet, that's fine too, I can convert it. And then direction, so that's going to be either degrees, like 120 degrees, or you can say, you know, east, that's fine, either is fine. And then you're going to check whether or not it's a pair. We're going to talk about that in a moment, how you know if it's a pair. And then any notes. So anything that's happened. Oh, it flew closer, or it flew off, or something chased it, or it caught a bug, or any sort of note like that, you want to go ahead and do that. Now, the reason I have just a bunch of lines is that if you're hearing two elf owls at the same point, you can do stop one, put the coordinates, the start time, elf owl, distance and direction, then elf owl again if you're hearing a different one. Like and that happens sometimes. You hear them sort of in opposite directions from where you're standing. Oh, there's one due east and there's one further away due west. Two males calling. That kind of thing. So you can use as many lines as you need per point and then start the next point, you know, where the other one ended. So Dataform's pretty darn simple. So it's pretty easy to put this in a notebook if you prefer to do that. Okay. So the other thing I got going on here is the audio file. So you can play this and listen to it. Go to the minute mark. So this is a good time to talk about female calls. So this audio file that we're playing that you're going to hear many times on survey night, this elf owl recording that I have here, I got from AZFO, Arizona Field Ornithologist, and it's a really good example of elf owl duetting. So this is a male calling, doing the laughing, and he goes, ha, 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 and then there's it turns out to be a different bird. It's a female doing mew. Then he goes, oh, mew. That mew is the female. So if you hear this, this is a pair. Especially at the beginning. Yeah, she's doing it in support. A lot of owls do this where the male and female will duet together. So that's what the female call sounds like. So if you hear that, that is a pair. You can assume it's a pair. If you're hearing little laughing, and then a mew call. Now, sometimes they'll just kind of mew at each other. It just seems to be a contact call too. So you tell me, mew, 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 and that's also going to be a pair. And I also have another audio file to play in a second. But anyway, so this audio file, you need this on your phone or MP3 player or something that you can then use to play it in the field. And one way to do that is to this link on the website is to right click on it and save link as, and you can actually save this link as an MP3 audio file. Okay, now you can do this on your phone. Now, some people find this easier. If you're having technical difficulties with this, let me know. Try to do this, by, I don't know, midday survey day or something. But if you're having trouble with this, I can email you the whole file, and then you can open your email on your phone and download it. That is another way to do it that sometimes works better for people. If you're having issues with that, which has happened sometimes in the past with iPhones, although I don't think this has been an issue in the last year or two, but before it was, where people then had a workaround of downloading it to Dropbox and then opening it on their phone. If you're having issues, let me know. I'm sure we can find a way to do it. But if something goes wrong, you can just sort of time a minute and then play the audio files from an app on your phone if you have to. That will also work. So yeah, you can save the MP3 file on your phone directly from this website is the idea here. Okay, so then I have some information here about GPS and that we're doing 150 meters. And then I have the maps too. So the protocol, I think, is relatively straightforward. We're trying to do 10 points. They're about 5 minutes each. They do use audio playback. We have a custom file that we've created. And the number one thing to keep in mind here is safety. Okay, safety is my number one priority. I do want everyone to be very, very safe. And the protocol talks about this too. I need everyone to bring a flashlight, like a headlamp or something like that, a reliable flashlight, maybe even a backup. Make sure you bring some water and, snacks if you want, or, bring some food in case you get hungry, and just really watch where you're walking. No one's doing anything off a trail or off a road. So just be very careful. Watch where your feet are going. Take your time between the points and just really be safe. Safety is the number one priority. If something's going on and you're feeling tired and you've only done a few points, just stop. It's fine. It's totally fine if you don't reach 10. Okay, it really is totally fine. And another thing that a few teams have done in the past that I think is a pretty good idea, and it's certainly an option if you'd like to, is some people get to their trailhead, say, half an hour, 40 minutes before sunset, and they walk out to an estimated sort of endpoint of what they think 10 points will be. And then they wait for it to get dark, and then they start surveying back towards the trailhead where they parked. It's going to make it sort of a one-way route in the dark. I tend to just start at the trailhead and go out, do the 10 points, and then just hike back in the dark, taking my time, not going too fast. Whatever you'd prefer is totally fine. If you want to go out before it's dark and then come back, that's great. Or if you want to wait for it to go dark, hike out and come back, that's also totally great. And it's just, as long as you have a reliable way to measure those, either 200 steps, 0.1 of a mile, or 150 meters between the points. So I think the protocol itself is pretty straightforward and understandable. If anyone has any questions, we will take questions at the end. But we've done this, quite a few years in a row now, and it's gone real well. I think this is a pretty solid protocol. So there's that audio file. There's the data form. Okay, any of this stuff. All right, so I want to talk a little bit more about LFILs, and then we'll talk about the routes. So some other calls that LFILs make. I looked around in eBird, was trying to find some Tucson area audio files, and I actually found some really good ones that people have put on eBird. And this is a good chance too, when we're out there, to if anyone's into taking audio files of birds or photos or anything, this is a good chance to do that, because we have sort of special permission to be in these areas after dark. You're not usually supposed to be in these areas. But so this is a nice one that happened on one of our routes, but I think it's earlier this year, right? What's the date on this? Yeah, so it's this is from Mike Ostrowski, and he got a really nice audio file of LFIL. Quiet. Okay, I'm gonna play that one more time because this is good, and I have heard LFILs do this a lot. A laughing call and all. It's like a little squeak, and it does sound. I always say this, but it sounds elfy. That's what I find myself saying in the field. But it does sound kind of elfy. It has a very similar tone and sort of excitement level as the laughing call, but it's more of a little squeak. And I have heard birds do this, and I think it's just, I don't know exactly what it means to them, but it's saying something. So it's not always a laughing call and a mew. Sometimes they do these little squeaks to each other, and it just sort of falls in that same tone as elf owl. And if you're hearing that, you can certainly, I don't know if that's a pair or not, but you can sort of document that it was calling, direction, and all that, and then maybe a note that it's like whatever it sounds like to you, excited squeaks, or they do this sort of agitated call sometimes too. So this is some really good audio files that were taken by David Robinson, who was on the survey last year. And I think he took these on the survey last year. I just found this. They're really good audio files. I'm gonna play these real quick. Look at different distant poor wolf calling. And then the owl did a little tiny beep. Got a lot of sounds of the night in this one. Oh well. That was the elf owl. That was a little bark, a little elf owl bark. They do a little bark sometimes. Sounds a lot like the mew. Bam. That's an elf owl barking. Okay, so they do that little bark sometimes. I know we had to listen to a lot of silence, but that was a good capture by David. Because I have heard them do that quite a lot, but I'd hardly ever heard a good audio file of it. So that was pretty good. A lot of silence, but the other ones are much shorter. Here we go. Doing more little barks. All these squeaks are elf owls. There's a common poor will in the background too. Two agitated elf owls. They're upset about something. My interpretation here. I am hearing distant great horned owl. That could be what's agitating them, if I had to guess. And then this last one's quite good too. Poor again. Great horned owl calling. This is not as clear, but they are doing those same little sort of squeaks in the background. So elf owls make a lot of sounds is my main point here. They make a lot of noises, and that is just something to be aware of, because if you're hearing, I think people get nervous that they're misidentifying something because it sort of sounded like an elf owl, but it didn't sound exactly like the callback point audio file. And they do make a lot of different sounds, and that is totally normal for them. Okay, so for the survey data entry at the end, we are going to be entering our own data. So this is an online spreadsheet that I will send the link to for everybody and give you editing power in it using your email address. And you will literally enter your data for the survey. So you're just going to put your districts. Let's say it's, let's say it's Tucson Mountain Park, was your survey area, and your route. Oh, I'm gonna do my actual one I'm gonna do. So let's say W Wash. So that's my route. And then the names of who was there. All my caps lock up. All right. So then what you can do is you can take this and you can pull down to however many points you did, and then stop number one. I'm going to put in my coordinates. The X. Oh, so I'm sorry, this is easting. So if you took UTMs, put them here. If you just put decimal degrees, put them here. I'm just making some up, but they're, these are ones you might expect in a Tucson. And then the day, which you can also then copy and paste down. And start time species is basically what's on the data form. It's going to go in here. If you don't want to do your own data entry, this worked. We did this starting with COVID when we started this, and we did it the last 2 years, and it was actually went really well. And I thought we had a lot less data entry errors and people having to worry about turning in a data sheet or anything. You can just record your data in the field and then put it into the spreadsheet yourself. And it worked really well. Now, if you don't want to do it, that is totally fine. You can take a photo of your data sheet or a scan or something and send it to me, and we can enter it. But I am giving everyone sort of the encouraged option to go ahead and do your own data entry. And it went really well last year. People did a really good job with it. So we're going to do that again this year. Now, in terms of who's doing what route, the routes are all here on this map. This is a map I've shared before. It is linked to on that LFAL information page. It's the one at the bottom. But I also sent the direct link in the previous email. But I've turned off the LFAL results from the past, and you can turn them on and look at them if you'd want, but they are in there, but they're off at the moment, so it doesn't get too cluttered for our viewing. But I have the routes that we've done in the past outlined here, and people who got back to me with what route they wanted or what type of route they wanted, I have already had assigned these. So on the east side survey, which is the one we're doing tomorrow, the Tuesday survey, the ones I've already assigned, I have this little icon of the little sort of pink colored hiking person. That's the icon of where I'm assigning people's, the ones people, what am I saying? It's west side I'm looking at. East side's over here. Okay. So for east side, excuse me, west side are the pink ones, east side are the purple ones. I've assigned people's, the ones I've already assigned are here. And these are the ones that were requested specifically, or a type was requested. So either a road or a trail near this area, that kind of thing. I went ahead and did all those. For people who I don't know what you want yet, I haven't assigned them yet. I have them ready to go, but I want to give people a little more time to weigh in on what they want. Now, if you're one of those people, you can look at this map and see what has not been claimed. Okay. And I would suggest, if you're going to claim one, this is what I'm going to do. And after a certain, maybe later today, I'll just start assigning them to people, which is totally fine, because I'm going to look at what the results were in the past and see which ones had the most owls and assign those to make sure those get covered. Okay. So, and they're also, it's a pretty good indication that you're going to have birds on that route, hopefully. So I'm trying to make sure that sort of the best routes get assigned first. And I think we have enough really good routes to make sure everyone gets one. So it's not like anyone will get left out here, but the brown icons are elf owls and the other color birds are different species, which is listed right here. So great horned owl, screech owl. The little brown ones, just like elf owls are brown, the little brown ones are elf owls. So if you want to, if you haven't chosen a route yet, the follow-up email I'm going to send right now has the survey link where you can give me your preferences. It was also in the previous email. So if you haven't done that, please go ahead and do that. And then I'll just assign what's left beyond probably, let's say, the end of business day today. I'll just assign them. So which is totally fine. But the survey also has questions about, do you need a partner? Do you have someone you want to be surveying with? Are you bringing a friend? Are you going to survey with a friend who is also signed up? So I need that information too, if you haven't answered that survey. Otherwise, I'll just be reaching out to people directly. So where I'm putting who's assigned to what route is on these sheets. These are online sort of Word documents that I will share the link to. They're view only, but basically what the map is saying, these are the people who on the east side survey for tomorrow, I have assigned locations to, and these are based on those survey answers. And then on the west side, these are the ones that have been assigned with the names of the teams. Now, if you see a mistake, you're like, oh, I don't want that route, or I don't want to be with that person, please do let me know directly. and we can get that fixed up. And that's why I do these online documents, is so I don't have to keep sending you guys attachments or something. It's an online document that can be viewed, and then if I have to make an update, I can just do it, and it's going to be the same for everybody when they link to it to see it. So this is where we've been putting the information on who's assigned what route and trail, and this corresponds to what's on this map. And part of the reason I'm putting these little icons here is I think it makes it a little easier to understand which one you've signed up for and what direction you're supposed to be going. These points are not like an end point or anything. It's just, I'm just trying to indicate which trail is the one you're assigned to, okay? And this corresponds to those documents. So sometimes like this one here, like these two trails, which are both very good, and we've had good luck with these in the past, is Sherry's team is starting, both these teams have to start at the same trailhead, because you get this in Saguaro Park, right, where trails will sort of go together for a little bit and then split. So this one, and the text will say which one starts the trailhead, and I think it's Sherry's team does, I think. But so this team does the trailhead and then swings to the west. This team will start at the same trailhead, sort of quickly move through this area before it's dark, and then start here at the beginning of Loma Verde Trail. And this is Melissa and Steve will then do this route going south from here. So I'm just trying to indicate what direction you're going, trying to make it kind of visually helpful. So this is how we're organizing it. And directly after this meeting, I will send out a follow-up email with the link to this meeting, and links to the map, to the sign-up sheet to see what you've signed up for, a little summary I wrote out of the protocol, a link to the full protocol, the data form and all that. And also, for the first time, I didn't send this in the last one, will be a link to the data entry form, which I will also send out again as sort of a follow-up to the survey. I do not need people to be doing data entry the night of. You're welcome to if you want, and I sometimes do. It depends on what time I get home. But I'm hoping just to have it in sort of this week, okay? So don't stay up too late. If you get home and you're beat, that's totally fine. And then you're busy the next day, that's fine. If as long as we get it in probably within a few days after the survey. I encourage people to do it sooner rather than later, so that what happened is still sort of fresh in your mind. But yeah, it's no huge rush to get that in. And then we'll go through the data and we'll make sure all the coordinates are, converted if they need to be, that kind of thing. Make sure it's a nice clean spreadsheet. And then it shall be the 2023 results. So here's 2022, it'll be the 2023 results. So they'll be on here as a layer that people can turn on and off in the future as well. So this is east side, and then on the same map, I just keep it together now. On the same map, we have the west side. So I have these ones already assigned, but a lot of good routes still open. So if you haven't chosen one yet, there's a lot of good ones. And then by tomorrow morning, I'll have sort of chosen for you if I haven't heard back. So I think I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and then we can do questions. Okay. And the email too will have my cell phone number. And sort of just a last note is I do need people to make sure they check out with me, send me a message. Otherwise, you'll be getting a phone call from me, just to make sure everyone gets out okay. That's really important to me. Safety is the number one priority in all these surveys, especially these nighttime surveys. And then, getting good quality data is super important. And then also everyone having a good time. Really, everyone having a good time is really, really important too. And something we started doing the last couple of years, which has been a total blast, is I've created a Google album for each of these surveys. And then I will share that with everyone involved in the surveys, and then we can upload photos. So I encourage everyone to take selfies while you're out there in the field, take photos of owls if you can, or photos of cool critters, bugs, moths, snakes, whatever you see, lizards. Someone got a great photo of like a bobcat one year. That was awesome. So any cool photos, especially sort of fun surveyor photos, are really helpful to us when we do sort of write-ups about this sort of thing, but also just very helpful in general for everyone else to see, because it's a lot of fun, because when you are in the album, you can see what other people shared. So I encourage everyone to do that. I see it in the chat, a request about the app. The one I like is called GPS Status. And this is what it looks like. I should be bigger now that I stopped sharing my screen. It's got a compass in it, which I really like. And then it just sort of shows, it reads out your coordinates too. Now, this is a free version, so it doesn't let you save them or anything. So I just screenshot them or just write them in my data form. Works well for me, and it's totally free. GPS Status. Yep, that's exactly right in the comment. GPS Status. And the icon is like a little satellite. It's like a little yellow satellite with a gray, like, I don't know, Wi-Fi signal coming out of it or something, like wah, 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 kind of signal coming out of a little yellow satellite. That's the one I like. There's a lot of options though. People like, I've heard, and I have this in my GPS document I'm going to share as well, where there's a lot of ones people have suggested, like Tom Trails or Gaia, or there's a lot of them. I like GPS status though, because it never has ads and it's also free. I mean, it has sometimes little tiny ads at the bottom, but it's not like it flashes a full screen ad at me ever. So that's a pretty good one. I do like that one. So yeah, so it's just as long as you can have something that's giving you either UTM coordinates or decimal degrees coordinates, preferentially. But if it's giving you some other type of coordinates, you can usually set it for what you want. You usually change them. They usually have a units option. But I do like that one. So all right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop recording and we will take some questions. So yeah, it's going to be fun, guys. I hope everyone gets ELF files and that we have a great time out there and that everyone's safe.